every crime, a story of a survivor, of someone left behind, of someone determined to solve a mystery. These are the stories of crimes that changed lives forever. This is Justice Rules.
An innocent toddler killed after he was left inside his father's hot car for hours. But was it an accident or cold-blooded murder?
The case of Ross Harris and the death of his 22-month-old son Cooper gripped the country. Images of the sweet young boy appeared on televisions everywhere as parents hugged their own children a little bit tighter, the tragedy pulling at their heartstrings. But when Harris was arrested and charged with leaving his little boy inside that car on purpose, the idea seemed unfathomable. A loving father suddenly accused of killing his son. And then, shocking new allegations surfaced, and Harris's wife filed for divorce. But did his secret life turn him into a heartless killer? Reporter Sophia Choi walks us through the dramatic twists and turns in a trial that garnered so much attention, it had to be moved.
Atlanta's most accurate, dependable forecast. Coming this morning, Channel 2 Action News meteorologist Brad Nitz.
Temperatures are going to be climbing quickly today. In fact, with the sunshine this morning, we're going to climb all the way into the upper 80s just by midday.
Breaking news, an investigation into a child's death.
Or this evening, Cobb County police are questioning the father of a 22-month-old who was found dead inside a car. Police say that child may have been in the car for nearly 8 hours while the father was at work.
One investigators still behind me going over the scene and mapping out what they're now calling a crime scene. Talked to several witnesses here at the shopping center who saw the whole thing unfold. They said the father obviously was extremely distraught to the point where police at one point had to put him in handcuffs in the back of a police car.
A steamy Wednesday in June and a tragic story that at first seemed like a heartbreaking accident. But no one could imagine the twists and turns that would unfold over the next 30 months. A child dead, a mother under the microscope, and a father on trial not just for his own child's death, but sex crimes with underage women.
Are you Justin Ross Harris, sir?
Yes, sir.
From the beginning, police suspected Ross Harris was responsible for the death of his 22-month-old son, Cooper. Investigators charged Ross with felony murder and child cruelty. They believed he intentionally left his son in the back of his SUV in the sweltering heat for nearly 8 hours. Charges the father denied during his first court appearance.
He's fully aware of what his rights are. He's fully aware of what he's charged with, and he'll be entering a plea of not guilty at this time.
The day after Cooper's funeral, search warrants released to the public revealed that both Ross and his wife, Leanna Harris, had recently searched hot car deaths on the computer. Leonard Madden was the first witness to see Ross take his dead child out of the SUV. He believed it was all a tragic accident.
His initial reaction was too organic for it to have been planned from what I could see. His cries out of desperation and passion and hurt, they were too heartfelt.
Madden testified to just that during Ross's probable cause hearing, but he was unaware of explosive testimony that had come before. Shocking allegations Ross was texting women while his child was in the car.
The most common term would be sexting.
Were photos being sent back and forth between these women and the defendant during this day while the child's out in the car?
Yes.
Detectives also said Ross visited a website advocating a child-free lifestyle, watched videos of people dying, and researched how to survive in prison. But Madden did not think it was murder.
I believe it just was a terrible and grave accident. However, I do not believe it was done intentionally.
The judge ruled there was probable cause to charge Ross with his son's murder and denied him bail. Days later, Ben McCrae, who has known Ross since high school, painted a very different picture of the jailed father.
He was a very charismatic, energetic, go-getting, social person.
McCrae said he was a groomsman when Ross and Leanna got married.
He really loved her and cared about her.
McCrae said after they had Cooper, they were an even happier family.
They were glowing with joy.
Glowing with joy.
And the grandparents too.
McCrae said he could not believe the news when he learned what his friend was accused of doing.
I started questioning a lot of things.
In the beginning, Leanna stood by her husband, stating in a crime victim report that she believed he was innocent and called him a wonderful father, but that would eventually change. Early on, there was speculation that she was involved in the plot. She was not indicted, but Ross was, on charges of malice murder, 2 counts of felony murder, cruelty to children in the first and second degree, criminal attempt to commit a felony, and dissemination of harmful materials to minors. The district attorney announced that prosecutors would not seek the death penalty. Then came a bombshell.
Leanna has filed for divorce, but I don't see that that's going to impact the admissibility of evidence at all in this case.
Defense attorney Scott Semrau wasn't directly involved in the case, but said the divorce would not affect what Leanna would say at trial. According to the divorce filing, the couple separated the day of Ross's arrest. Ross's attorneys tried unsuccessfully to keep potentially damaging details of his extramarital affairs out of his trial. Prosecutors said Ross's sexting showed motive, that he was unhappy with his marriage and son, including one chat from the day Cooper died.
I love my son and all, but we both need escapes. 10 minutes before he locks the child in that car to die.
Prosecutors said Ross's desire for sex explained why he would kill his son.
Not only was he sexting, not only was he meeting up with other women in parking lots, he was actually seeking out and meeting up with prostitutes and paying for sex as recently as within a few weeks of Cooper's death.
The following months came more charges against Ross related to his sexting with underage girls, 2 counts of sexual exploitation of children, and 6 of disseminating harmful material to a minor. Nearly 2 years after Cooper's death, jury selection for Ross's trial began. But then a delay. Ross's legal team filed a motion for a change of venue. The judge cited the unprecedented media and social media attention and agreed, moving the high-profile trial from Metro Atlanta to Brunswick, Georgia. Nearly 2 years after Cooper's death, jury selection for Ross's trial began. But then a delay. Ross's legal team filed a motion for a change of venue. The judge cited the unprecedented media and social media attention and agreed, moving the high-profile trial from Metro Atlanta to Brunswick, Georgia. After picking a new jury, the trial began again there. Ross looked pained and frowned during opening statements.
An innocent child versus a father who abandoned his responsibilities.
An officer on the scene testified about Ross's, quote, forced emotion as he yelled upon discovering his son's lifeless body.
To me, it appeared kind of calm, and then he started yelling.
A witness testified he heard those yells and saw Ross over the boy.
I got on my knees right in front of him and started doing CPR. I don't know if he was doing CPR. I don't know what the hell he was doing. It wasn't right, whatever he was doing. So I just kind of moved him out of the way and started CPR.
Ross's attorney pushed back against claims that Ross's response seemed off.
None of them knew his eccentricities. None of them knew his personality.
Then came crime scene photographs. Some of them made Ross look away, cover his face, and weep. A crime scene tech described Cooper's lifeless body.
Back of his back was wet, and you can actually see the wetness in the top of his blue shorts.
Jurors watched the last video ever taken of little Cooper, shot on security cameras in a Chick-fil-A just a few hours before his death. The manager testified he remembered seeing Cooper and Ross.
And I saw Mr. Harris and Cooper at the front counter, and I just said, "Hey, good morning, guys." And I said, "Who's this little guy?" And it was Cooper. So I waved to Cooper and I said, "Hey, Coop."
Then jurors saw another video of the inside of Ross's SUV. It shows Cooper's red car seat just 3.5 inches from the driver's seat. The detective who made the video described the awful odor when he first opened the door.
It's an odor that I normally associate with death. It's very hard to describe the odor, like a sickly sweat smell.
Next came a parade of women and girls who sexted with Ross. An escort took the stand and said Ross visited her multiple times.
Did you actually engage in sexual acts with him back in May?
Yes, on 3 different occasions.
Okay.
A teenage girl who the judge ordered not to be shown told jurors she hooked up with Ross on the Whisper app, and they exchanged lewd pictures. Another woman testified about a year-long online relationship with Ross that included a one-night stand at his apartment.
But I do know that it immediately went sexually.
Ross's work friends testified next. One said he sent Ross a link to a page on Reddit called Child Free.
You see what Ross's response was?
Yeah, he wasn't for it.
In fact, his response was grossness.
Yep.
Another work friend told jurors Ross never said one bad word about his son.
You never heard Ross talk about living child-free, have you?
I have not.
But you have been witness to him being a very engaged, loving parent, haven't you?
I have.
Ross sobbed in the courtroom as the medical examiner described Cooper's slow and painful death.
He definitely went through the various phases of having a headache and probably had nausea and may have had some seizure activity prior to becoming unconscious and passing.
2 days later, a woman told jurors she started chatting with Ross when she was 18.
How often it was he would complain about his marriage to Leanna?
Probably once a week.
She said the relationship turned sexual, and Ross began opening up about the problems in his marriage.
He would say that if his situation was different, he would be with me instead of her.
And did he ever say that, if it wasn't for Cooper, he would leave Leanna?
Yes.
The defense chipped away at her testimony that Ross had plans to go away with her.
Well, the fact is you're really upset with Ross because you found out that you weren't the only woman that he was texting with. Isn't that true?
Doesn't change what I'm saying now.
Then the jury got to hear for the first time Ross, in his own words, describe what happened.
I turned onto Cumberland and I drove down Cumberland Boulevard. I went to work as if he wasn't even in the back. And I probably didn't even hear him because he falls asleep really easily when you drive a car.
In an interview recorded by police, Ross seemed to have a crystal clear recollection of the morning Cooper died, even remembering how he strapped his son into his car seat.
I made sure he strapped in real tight, according to all the regulations.
The video also shows an emotional Ross crying in the interview room.
Oh, God.
Then, when Ross learns he will be charged, no more emotion, just legal questions.
There are certain criminal statutes that you have to look at, and if you think that one of them meets the qualifications, that's your decision. I would like to say I highly disagree.
The jury also watched this video that Ross viewed just 5 days before Cooper died.
I mean, this kills, and it's a lousy way to die.
It demonstrates just how hot it gets in a car. The defense suggested there was a conspiracy against Ross.
Isn't it true? You're looking for a conspiracy.
According to the defense, detectives were seeing what they wanted to see while investigating Ross for Cooper's death. Ross's attorney spent plenty of time on the issue of Leanna, who was a suspect but never charged.
You don't think she reacted the way you think she should have.
And that is a very small part. It's a whole picture. You have to know all the pieces to know why she was considered a suspect.
Prosecutors rested their case after showing this 3D reconstruction of Harris's SUV. The defense showed videos and pictures of Cooper alive and well, and then the defense's star witness, Leanna, testified on behalf of her now ex-husband.
Next, the star witness. Ross Harris's ex-wife takes the stand in his defense. What she revealed about their marriage and what she believes happened the day their son died.
Prosecutors rested their case after showing this 3D reconstruction of Harris's SUV. The defense showed videos and pictures of Cooper alive and well, and then the defense's star witness, Leanna, testified on behalf of her now ex-husband. She wasn't allowed to say directly if she thought Ross killed their son intentionally, but her feelings came out.
I knew I needed to be strong for him. I knew that he was never going to forgive himself. I knew that this was something that wasn't done purposefully. I just
Objection, Judge. Commenting on intent.
Leanna portrayed Ross as a loving father.
And did Ross love this little boy?
Yes, he did. Very much.
During cross-examination, prosecutors worked to get Leanna to testify that the man revealed through testimony
I didn't think that he would have an affair, a physical affair.
Was a different person than the man she married.
I think it's horrible. I would agree that it's different, but not that it's like a whole other person.
Leanna chose her words carefully as she talked about Ross's affair, catching her husband sexting and her husband visiting a prostitute as she texted him to come home to spend time with her and Cooper.
He was choosing that life over spending time with you and Cooper on that day.
That day.
Okay, and that's about a little over 2 weeks from Cooper's death.
Leanna testified that she would have left Ross if she knew he was having a physical affair. But the state questioned why then did she divorce him 2 years after Cooper's death. Leanna broke down in tears.
I had a lot to process
Yes,
in a
ma'am.
very, very short period of time.
The man who considered himself to be Ross's best friend said he volunteered to be Ross's accountability partner for his porn addiction. He admitted he did not know Ross was sexting with women the day Cooper died, but he defended Ross as a father.
I saw him struggle with sexual sin. The same time I saw him being a tremendous friend to me and a tremendous father.
And a tremendous husband too, right?
At times, yes.
Then the time came for Ross Harris to decide, would he testify at his own trial?
He does not want to testify in the trial of this case.
But the judge wanted to hear it straight from Ross.
It's been stated to me that you will like not to testify at this time.
That is correct, yes, ma'am.
And was that your opinion and what you wanted to do when it was stated to the court?
Yes, ma'am.
The defense rested, but prosecutors brought back a rebuttal witness, the detective who told Leanna her son had died. The detective said Leanna was, in his opinion, oddly unemotional. Jurors heard an audio recording of Leanna's first interview in which she said a hot car death was a big concern of the couple.
We talk about it a lot. That's been one of our biggest fears. It always has
Talk
been.
about what, accidentally leaving him in the car?
It's always been a big fear of mine.
After 4 days of deliberations, the jury reached a verdict.
You find the defendant guilty this 14th day of November.
You look at one thing, maybe that could be excusable, but then you look at this part and this part and this part, and the only thing that makes sense was his guilt.
Ross showed little emotion as deputies led him out of the courthouse in handcuffs and put him into a car to drive him back to jail. But his attorney continued to insist Ross was innocent.
From the moment we met Ross Harris, we've never once, ever once wavered in our absolute belief that he's not guilty of what he's just been convicted of.
At sentencing, the state asked for the maximum sentence.
There's only one sentence that reflects the evil nature of what he did.
The judge sentenced Ross to life in prison without parole for Cooper's murder and an additional 32 years for the other charges. 2 months later, Leanna said, despite the guilty verdict, she refuses to believe Ross intentionally left Cooper in the hot SUV to die a slow death.
I had to tell the truth. And I can't sit up there and say that he was a bad father. I can't sit up there and say that he was annoyed by having a child, because that's not what I saw.
Leanna said she was focusing on restoring her son's legacy.
He's seen as a child that wasn't loved and wasn't wanted, and that just wasn't true. And I don't want people to think of my son that way.
Ross Harris was sentenced to life in prison without parole. His lawyers are appealing, arguing that all the publicity made it impossible for him to get a fair trial. Even after Harris's conviction, his ex-wife continues to defend him, saying she always believed Cooper's death was an accident. Thank you for joining us tonight. And remember, for so many of these families, one tip could be the key to bringing them closure and putting those responsible behind bars for good.